Hey everybody, this is Nafiul Islam and welcome to Early Access PyCharm. In this episode, I have Nadya and Dmitriy joining me. Nadya is the new team lead for the VCS team and Dmitriy is the current product manager. So without much further ado, here's the conversation. One day I was talking to Kirill and I said, "Hey Kirill, I'd love to have you for another episode of the podcast." And he said, "I don't do version control systems anymore. I ran away." And now Nadya leads the team. So, Nadya, what happened? Let us know.
It's a really tough question. You're right.
Yeah, is Kirill sleeping with the fishes? Was that an automated AI that was talking to me? What's going on here?
Actually, he's one of the most experienced guy in JetBrains, and I think he could bring a huge value to a company, and not only in version control system.
So it's nice to know, he's not sleeping with the fishes or anything.
Yeah.
The other person that we have here is Dmitriy. So Dmitriy, you're in Amsterdam. You're the product manager for VCS, which is integrated into all our IDEs. So I wanted to know, because I had this question for Kirill when he was back here as well. Are you running out of ideas for version control? Because I feel like the product does everything.
We can always add something because Git always adds something. But the question is, do we really need all the Git features inside IDE? But even if we don't do features, there are a lot of things to improve in terms of usability. And currently, talking about like adding new features, we are not doing that much in like exactly features, but of course there are like related to version control things like GitHub integrations, GitLab integrations, reviews. They're all version control related. It's not directly features of version control, but it's somehow related, and we are working on that one.
So how has the thinking changed from, initially when we started building VCS to now that we're building VCS? Has it gone from thinking about like, okay, we just need to have this abstraction over Git, or back in the good old days where you had Mercurial and I don't know if there were any others, but frankly, nobody cares anymore. Is it now more about how do we integrate services? Is that what you're saying?
Well, kind of, but not only this. As you mentioned, a lot of version controls there, but who cares? It's not exactly true, but Git won. And,
Git won.
There are things we could adapt in our IDE to better work with Git. So for example, we have a concept of change lists. It's a good thing, good feature. It allows a lot of things, but user expects it's not native to Git. It's some additional concepts user need to learn, and it adds a cognitive load. Basically, we try to make our IDE to help people by like reducing this load. So one of the way to go is to become closer to Git. So a user that basically has some expectations can find what he needs.
When you're building this stuff, when you're going above, when you're trying to take out a lot of, I would assume, the legacy code and how it works with changeless, Nadya, how much of a challenge does that present when it comes to developing new features or just simplifying the product?
So actually, legacy code is one of the biggest problems, not only in VCS area, but just in entire core and IntelliJ platform. So for us, it's a real problem, and we try to manage it. So we try to make some cleanups and to refactor different parts of our code to make it more useful for us and for maybe our plugin writers also.
So are you trying to, when you're refactoring and you're going back to your old code base that had support for different kinds of version control systems, the question that I have to ask is maybe there are some good features from other version control systems that perhaps were easier to do. How do you square that circle? Maybe you can do X or Y or Z in an easier way in Mercurial than you can in Git. Do you somehow try to have a layer of abstraction from that and bring that to Git? Like, for example, we have a lot of cool things in VCS, like very easy to squish commit messages, very easy to check out. Right now, we have support for lots of remotes and things like that. But I assume that there were some good ideas in Mercurial that you might want to keep in the version control system. How do you square that circle?
I think now our main area is vice versa. We try not to bring new concepts even from different version control into Git support or into IntelliJ, just VCS support. We try to extract and to simplify and make things more transparent. So it's not about bringing new features from other version control systems. It's just opposite.
Yeah, that's a good decision because right now, essentially, we're doubling down on Git and just trying to build a system that really encompasses it easily and does a good job at it.
Yes, you're right. And we reconsider even things that we already used during past 10 years, like shelves. It's a concept that we get from another version control and try to make it better inside IntelliJ platform. But now we are considering to avoid this and to change it to Git's native stash.
Yeah, so you just want to have a layer over Git stash. What was the difference between shelf and Git stash, by the way?
The difference is not as huge, but there are some things that shelves are faster, and you can easily shelf some particular selected files without any overhead.
I guess when you know what's going on under the hood, it makes things easier.
Yeah, but still, even with Git, no one basically knows in details. Okay, not no one. Usually, when you shelf, you just go to Google. I need to do this, and you find a command there, and that basically that's what you need, and you don't need to dive deep. So that's a problem of adding new features. Nathaniel, you asked, do we bring some concepts from other version controls? For example, change list. It's like a concept that came in from centralized version control systems. Like a version like Perforce, which used to be like the mainstream back that days when there was this.
Probably long before I was born, you know?
I'm not sure. Not sure that long ago. But anyway, this like is a concept that is not native. And the way people learn something nowadays is basically by example. And if you are like doing something, if you don't know how to do something, you ask an advice, and guess what you'll find on the internet? Change lists? No. It would be like some specific Git command you need to do. If you are like interested enough, you can get some knowledge what actually does and what happens behind the scenes. But you would be probably looking to do exactly the same thing in the IDE, like command names, similar things. That's probably a tricky part here, that we can do cool features probably, but we need to maintain balance to make sure that the feature remains clear.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, because a lot of the time, that's why I asked, is it more about having that nice abstraction layer over Git instead of trying to have like an advanced version of Git in the IDE? One thing I think we do really well is actually the visualization of what's going on with different branches and comparisons and versions. How do you come up with ways of making that visualization of Git easier?
You mean the history?
The history, the branch view, the comments, the side view as well, the blame view. Like essentially, how do you think about integrating Git into something that doesn't feel alien? Because a lot of the times, if you're just using the Git command line tool, right, you have to do really long commands to get something like a visual graph of who committed what, where, when, and the branches. How do you think about that? Is it more about, let's take some commonly used Git commands and let's just create visual UI out of them? Is that how it works, or am I just putting words in your mouth?
No, we usually try to go by use cases. So we are not mimicking specific Git commands and behavior. There is always some scenario that a user wants to solve. They want to achieve something, and depending on what it is, like the ways to go there could be different. Git is not that intuitive, you know?
No, it's not.
So obviously, like IDE is primarily about the code, correct? So you're working with code, and so everything should be built around this. Obviously, if you want some history for the code, like you have an editor and all the annotations stuff with blame, whatever, it's easy to show right in the editor. It's like pretty clear where to show this and more or less how to show. And then you have some scenario what you need to do with that. So from annotations, you can go to some specific commit in the log. You need to see diffs and from that scenario, we basically expand and trying to support some common flows.
So I do have to ask, what remains unused? Like, you folks see the metrics in VCS usage. What really good features are people just not using that kind of drive you mad and want to make you flip your table and throw a golf club at the screen? What are people not doing right?
I probably mentioned that if people not using that, it's not they doing it not right. It's probably maybe they just don't need it, or maybe we need to improve something on our side.
But you don't feel bad? Like you work really hard on a feature or on a simplification and then nobody uses it? Isn't that soul crushing?
Of course, it would be great if every feature is used by 100% of our users. But of course, we have a lot of them, and they're all so different and with different workflows and different needs. Well, I would say that, for example, we have a great feature to rebase interactively. We have a dialog visualization, like easy to use. It's used not that much, but on the other hand, not that much people rebases a lot in general. So it's kind of okay. Of course, we when we do features, we put like best efforts in it to make sure it looks great and is comfortable.
Yeah, but if people don't want to use it, they don't want to use it. You're not going to force them to do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the methodology is more like, hey, let's build something that we actually find useful in our team because we dog food everything. And if we find it useful, it will go into the product.
Sometimes, yes. Again, relying fully on our internal feelings is not always the right thing because, again, every team is different and it all depends on the workflows. So what works for us might not work for other scenarios. So we need to carefully think about everything and trying to do like a more generic thing that should cover all of them. But as you said, we can't force anyone. Let's say the goal of all this, why we need version control support in IDE in the first place, to make life of people easier. If they are fine, so there are a lot of people who are completely fine using command line because they are used to this, because it's like easy to remember or whatever, and they're completely comfortable with this. So what we can do for them, we can't force them to commit from IDE or whatever. However, there are things we could help them with. For example, even if they commit everything from command line, if they rebase from command line, the looking job lame is most like comfortable with an IDE, and it's like something we could offer them. Showing diffs, working with merges, that's what we can bring in for those users, and that's fine. That's basically why we do this to make sure that users of our IDE gets the best experience from like the entire developer workflow. Yeah, so he's happy doing things he's doing, and we help with our head where we can.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Nadya, Dmitry, thank you so much for joining me on this, and I'll hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting.
And thank you for listening. If you'd like more of these podcasts, please let us know in the comments below. You can always reach us on Twitter as well.